So lads, the second video of the day. We are going to be talking about this trade right here. And we're going to be talking about two things. Does it really improve the Grizzlies? And what the hell are the Clippers thinking? But yeah, so Rondo and Pat Bev have gone to the Grizzlies. I mean, Rondo has been good in a 2-point guard lineup, by the way. He's actually been good. Like, he was good with Drew Holiday. I actually think that he can maybe play at the same time as Ja. And he can be alright, a good veteran leader. And Patrick Beverly is Patrick Beverly. I think he's one of those... Patrick Beverly is a player that... He's like... I don't want to compare him to Draymond Green because they're not similar. But in terms of like their mentality, they're similar. In the right situation, they can be spectacular players. Extremely important players to their team. But there aren't that many situations which are the right situation. I mean, maybe he'll be all right for the Grizzlies. I don't know. I really don't know how great he's going to be for the Grizzlies. But Eric Bledsoe. Is Eric Bledsoe a better basketball player right now than Rondo and Pat Bev? Yes. But is Eric Bledsoe going to help them win a title? I don't really think so. Like, Bledsoe is... Like, he has... I'm pretty sure he's under contract for up until 22, 23. And I don't know if he helps them win a ring when Kawhi's back. What it looks like the Clippers have done right here. Obviously they've gotten rid of Pat Bev. They brought back Bledsoe. But what it looks like they have done more than anything is... I think they're trying to give themselves the best chances of winning this year, assuming Kawhi Leonard is not going to be playing. Because personally, I think that Bledsoe gives them a bet. Like, if they don't have Kawhi, they're not winning. But I think Bledsoe might give them a better chance of making it to the playoffs than if Kawhi. Then Rondo. And also, Bledsoe has been really good in a 2-point guard lineup. Like, again, Bledsoe's best season was... one of his best seasons was beside Goran Dragic. So Bledsoe's actually looked good in a 2-point guard. Obviously, when they went with Isaiah Thomas and tried to have 3-point guards, it was a bit crazy. But Bledsoe has actually looked pretty good in scenarios where he's played alongside another point guard. So I think that that's really what's happened there with the Clippers, is that next season, I think the Clippers are writing it off. Like, I actually think this is a sign the Clippers are writing off the season. Because there is no way, like, they traded for Rajon Rondo for a reason. They gave away Lou Will. Like, Lou Will was an important part of that team. They gave away Lou Williams. And the reason they gave away Lou Williams is they wanted Rondo's, like, veteran leadership. Obviously, Pat Bev, maybe him going up and shoving Chris Paul was kind of the end of the road for him in Los Angeles. But I still think Pat Beverly and Rajon Rondo were... I don't think... Well, Rondo obviously wasn't playing much. He probably wasn't happy there. Maybe Kawhi wanted him out. Maybe PG wanted him out because I think he probably challenged them a lot more than they wanted to be challenged. I think we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I just think from a purely basketball perspective, those two guys would suit like a championship level roster more than Bledsoe. But if you are looking to get the 5 through 8 seed and maybe get an upset in the first round, Bledsoe's better than both of these guys. And I think that's what the Clippers are more so looking at for next season. Because you look at their roster, you got Reggie Jackson, you got Terrence Mann, who's still pretty good. There are a good few players, or a few good players on that Clippers team. Obviously, they still have Paul George, they still have Zubac. I think they still have Marcus Morris. Like, they still have a roster, lads. They still have a squad. So, even without Kawhi, a lot of people are saying, oh, they're not going to make the playoffs. I still think they make the playoffs. No question about it. Like, they're better than... In my opinion, they're better than the Trailblazers without Kawhi. Even without Kawhi, they're better than the Trailblazers. So, I think they make the playoffs as one of the lower seeds. And worst case scenario are in the play-in tournament. And yeah, I do think that Eric Bledsoe, like, if you look and you compare just even the stats, like, Bledsoe wasn't good last year. I'm just going to bring up Bledsoe's stats right here. Like, Bledsoe was not good last year for the Pelicans. But, like, if you look at Eric Bledsoe's stats over the last couple of years, like, the guy has had seasons where he averaged 21 points a game in Phoenix. Obviously, then he tweeted out that I don't want to be here a little bit later. But then again, like, 17 points. Half of that season was with Goran Dragic as his other point guard. In this game, I know he only played 40 games in 13-14. But he still averaged 17.7 points per game playing alongside another point guard for a team that was pushing for the playoffs. In Milwaukee, like, he averaged 15.9, 14.9 points as the, like, third/fourth option. You can argue in that 18-19 season that he was the, like, Mirotic was as much of an option. Obviously, he was after Middleton and Giannis, but, like, he was like a 3A, 3B option. Problem is, though, when you go to his playoff stats, when you go to his playoff series, he, you can see it right here. For Milwaukee, 13.6. Yeah, he did okay against Detroit when they, like, swept them. But then 13, 10, 11, 11. And look at his percentages, like 31, 25, 17, 28, 21. So that's his 3-point percentages. His field goal percentages, obviously he played well in this one series where they swept them. 43, 29, 44, 33. Like, they're not great field goal percentages. They're really not. And then the series that they've lost, he shot 29%, and in 2020 he shot 33%, which is horrific. So obviously not a great playoff performer. But one thing he is a pretty good regular season performer and a good defender. So I think that Bledsoe can help. Honestly, he can help the Clippers in the regular season next year. A lot of people are looking at this and saying, like, oh yeah, what the hell are the Clippers doing? And that's how I initially felt about this trade. I'm like, why the hell? Like, Bledsoe doesn't help the Clippers get a championship. But I don't think that's the purpose of the trade. And the more, like, after taking a couple of hours to just kind of, like, think about this, I don't mind it. I really don't. If Kawhi Leonard comes back, I mind this trade. This is a bad trade if Kawhi Leonard comes back. Or maybe they're thinking they may not make the playoffs without Kawhi if they don't trade for someone like a Bledsoe. And they kept those two guys. So there's no point even having a playoff roster around Kawhi if they're not going to make the playoffs. Which is another understandable point. So I can see the reasoning for it. I think there are a good few reasons. And again, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Maybe Kawhi wants those two guys out. Maybe Paul George likes Bledsoe or something. But I don't think Bledsoe's a bad player at all. I think he's had a few bad series. And I think it's hard to judge a player based off like 8 games. Because it's such a small sample size. Again, he hasn't played that many playoff games. He hasn't played that many playoff series. So it's hard to judge too much because you never know. Like, sometimes players have a bad 2 or 3 spells of bad, like they could have a bad year, a bad second year in the playoffs, and then suddenly look like they do in a regular season after that. So yeah, historically Bledsoe's been bad in the playoffs, but at the end of the day, he could step up. Maybe he'll get a bit more confidence. He will step up, but I don't hate it. I don't particularly like it. I think there are better moves. I'm not sure who you could get for those two guys. I think there were better players to fill out this roster, but I don't hate it. Bledsoe's not a bad player. Bledsoe's a great defender. While he's not going to be as like tenacious as a Patrick Beverly, and he's not going to make as much big defensive plays, he's going to probably play more consistent defense throughout the regular season. He's not going to make the plays on offense of a Rajon Rondo, but he's still a relatively dynamic point guard who has the ability to go off for 25, 30 more than either of these guys. And I think that's maybe what the Clippers need next year. The Clippers may not need a championship playoff roster because whereas the last 2 seasons, the Clippers' goal has been to win the championship, I think this season, the goal of the Clippers is to make the playoffs, and Bledsoe helps with that. So anyway, that's the video. That's just my opinion on all of this. Again, I hated this when it first happened, and maybe sometimes you go with your gut instinct when you don't like a trade. But the more I think about it, the more it's not a good trade, but it also doesn't seem to be a bad trade either. Because I think without this trade, the Clippers are maybe not making the playoffs. I think this trade probably cements them making the playoffs without Kawhi. Doesn't make them relevant in terms of the championship hunt, but I mean, it does kind of make their team better in the regular season, so I kind of get it. So anyway, that's the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.